Hey everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast. Today we're taking a deep dive into the world of English learning. We've got a ton of personal stories and advice, and I'm excited to see what we uncover.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The sources don't just say, learn English. They actually show how it can open up so many doors.
That's what I'm curious about. What are the big wins these sources highlight? Why should someone listening in right now care about learning English?
Well, one thing that pops up a lot is global communication. It's more than just like ordering a coffee in a foreign country. It's about really connecting with people from all walks of life.
Right.
There's this one story I loved about someone who used their English skills to connect with other fans online of a Japanese author.
Cool.
They had these awesome conversations about the books, the culture, everything. It really shows how English can help you understand different perspectives.
I love that. It's not just practical, it's about making your life richer. And I bet having people to talk to practice with, makes learning more fun.
Totally. And the sources are full of examples of how English can help your career. One person said learning English helped them get a job at an international company, which completely changed their path.
That makes total sense. In a global world, English is a huge advantage. But it's not just about getting a job, is it? I'm thinking about access to information, to education.
You're spot on. English unlocks a ton of knowledge. Top universities, online courses, research papers, so much is in English. One source even said they could access cutting-edge medical research because of their English, which was super important for their health.
Wow, that's incredible. It shows how English can empower you, whether it's your career, health, or even hobbies.
For sure. And don't forget about experiencing culture in its original form. Imagine watching your favorite foreign film without subtitles or understanding the lyrics of that catchy English song.
Okay, you've convinced me. But let's be honest, learning a new language can feel overwhelming, especially for beginners. Where do you even start?
All the sources say, start small and build a strong base. Don't aim for fluency overnight. Focus on basic greetings, everyday phrases, and build up your vocabulary from there.
So it's about those small wins, building confidence over time. What specific tips do the sources suggest for those early stages?
Consistency is key. Even 15 minutes a day can make a difference. One source said they'd listen to English music during their commute or watch short English videos online.
I love that. It's about making English a part of your life, not just a subject to study.
Exactly. Another common tip is to find a language partner. It could be a friend, family member, or someone online.
Having someone to practice with makes it more fun and interactive. It's like having a built-in cheerleader.
For sure. And there are tons of platforms for connecting with language learners. Websites like italki and Hello Talk are great for finding a partner who shares your interests.
So we've got consistency, a language partner.
Yeah.
Any other golden nuggets for beginners?
Set achievable goals. Don't try to learn the whole dictionary at once. Break your learning into small steps. Maybe learn 5 new words a day, or practice a grammar rule for 10 minutes.
Breaking things down helps you stay focused and motivated, and those small wins feel even more rewarding.
Absolutely. And speaking of rewards, the sources say it's important to celebrate your progress. Maybe treat yourself to a movie in English, or enjoy a meal from an English-speaking culture. Acknowledge your efforts.
Now, that's a learning style I can get behind. But what about those who are already comfortable with the basics? What advice did these sources offer for taking English to the next level?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. A lot of the sources talk about immersion.
Okay, tell me more about this immersion thing. What does it actually look like in practice? Is it all about, like, hopping on a plane to London?
Well, traveling to an English-speaking country is immersive, but it's not the only way. It's more about creating an English-speaking environment wherever you are. One source said they switched their phone and computer settings to English. It forced them to use the language even during simple tasks.
That's smart, making English a constant presence in your life. Did any of the sources offer tips on how to make immersion more engaging? Because, let's be real, staring at menus in English might not be everyone's cup of tea.
That's a good point. A lot of sources said, find activities you enjoy and do them in English. For example, if you love movies, try watching English films with subtitles and then gradually wean yourself off the subtitles as you understand more. Or if you love cooking, try following recipes in English. The key is to make it fun and relevant to your interests.
That's great advice, turning your passions into learning opportunities. But what about reading? I know a lot of people struggle with reading in a foreign language.
The sources talked a lot about reading. They said it's important to explore different types of materials, not just one genre. One source recommended trying novels, newspapers, academic articles, even blogs. They said it helped them expand their vocabulary and understand different writing styles.
So it's like a literary adventure. You're not just learning the language. You're getting a glimpse into different worlds. But just reading passively is one thing. Did the sources recommend any active reading strategies?
For sure. One source said they'd keep a notebook while reading and write down new words or phrases. Then they'd look up the definitions and try to use those words in their writing or conversations.
That's a great way to make those words stick. It's one thing to understand them, but another to actually use them.
Exactly. And speaking of actively using English, several sources talked about the importance of writing in English. They recommend trying different formats, like essays, reports, letters, and even creative writing.
I can imagine that helps solidify your grammar and develop your own writing voice in English. But writing, especially for a non-native speaker, can be intimidating. Did the sources offer any tips to make it less scary?
One source said they'd start by writing in their native language and then translate it into English. They said it helped them get over the fear of writing and focus on expressing their ideas clearly in English.
That's a cool strategy. It's like building a bridge between your native language and English. We've talked about reading and writing. What about listening? That's a big part of learning a language, right?
Absolutely. The sources had tons of advice on how to actively engage with English audio. They said to listen to different things like podcasts, audiobooks, and radio shows to get used to different accents and speaking styles.
That makes sense, especially since English is spoken with so many different accents around the world. But passively listening is one thing. Did the sources recommend any strategies for making listening more active and effective?
One source had a cool tip. They said they'd listen to a short piece of audio several times, each time focusing on something different. Like the first time for the overall meaning, then for specific words, and finally for the speaker's intonation and pronunciation.
That's a great way to really dissect the language and make it stick.
You got it. And speaking of actively using English, the sources emphasize finding opportunities to practice speaking. They suggested discussions, debates, even public speaking to build fluency and confidence.
Okay, now that's where it gets real. It's one thing to understand English, but speaking it out loud is a whole other challenge. Did the sources offer any tips for overcoming that fear of speaking?
One person said they'd practice speaking English out loud, even when alone. They'd talk to themselves, narrate their actions, even have imaginary conversations.
That's a great tip. It's all about getting comfortable with the sound of your own voice speaking English. Did any of the sources offer advice on how to find opportunities to practice with others?
Yeah, a lot of them talked about joining English-speaking communities. This could be anything from online forums to local events and meetups.
It's about finding people who understand the challenges and joys of learning English. Those communities provide a safe and supportive space to practice.
You're right. And for those who want something more structured, several sources suggested English conversation classes. They offer dedicated time to interact with other learners and get guidance from a teacher.
It's like having a coach to help you refine your skills.
Yeah.
But what about those who are already pretty fluent? What advice do the sources give for going beyond conversational English and really mastering the language?
That's where we get into some really exciting stuff. A lot of sources talked about specializing your English learning.
Specializing. Does that mean focusing on a specific accent or dialect?
It's more about tailoring your learning to your interests and goals. So if you're interested in law, you might study legal English. If you're in business, you might focus on business English.
So it's about going deep into how English is used in specific fields.
Exactly. And this kind of knowledge can be really helpful, especially in your career. It lets you communicate clearly and with authority, using the right vocabulary and tone for the situation.
It's like unlocking a secret code for success in your field.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of unlocking secrets, the sources talked about mastering idioms and expressions.
Ah, yes, those tricky phrases. I remember struggling with idioms when I first started learning English. It's like learning a whole new language within the language. How can someone master those?
The sources say it's about going beyond the literal meaning and understanding how English is used in everyday conversation. And mastering those expressions will impress native speakers.
Okay, so we've got specializing and idioms. What other tips did the sources offer for advanced learners?
They emphasize refining your pronunciation. Even small errors can make a big difference in how clearly you're understood, especially in professional settings.
Makes sense. Clear pronunciation is so important for effective communication. Did the sources offer any tips on how to improve pronunciation?
One source suggested recording yourself speaking English and listening back to it to find areas to improve. They also said to pay attention to how native speakers pronounce words, whether in movies, TV shows, or real life.
Great tip. It's about training your ear and practicing those sounds. But what about people who don't have access to native speakers or recordings? Any other ways to work on pronunciation?
Definitely. Online dictionaries and language learning apps often have audio pronunciations, and there are pronunciation guides and exercises online and in libraries.
So there are plenty of resources out there. It's all about finding what works for you.
You got it. And the sources also said, find opportunities to use English in real-life situations. One person talked about volunteering at a community center, which made them use their English in all sorts of situations.
That's another example of turning your passion into a learning opportunity. It's not just about language, it's about personal growth too.
Absolutely. And these experiences often lead to new friendships, which can help your learning even more.
It's all about creating a positive cycle. The more you use English, the more confident you become, which opens up more opportunities to use it.
Exactly. And as you learn, it's important to keep expanding your vocabulary.
Did they suggest going beyond memorizing word lists? Any specific techniques?
One source had a cool method. They'd pick a theme, like travel or technology, and spend a week focusing on vocabulary related to that theme. They'd read, watch, and listen to things about that topic. They said this made learning new words more fun and relevant.
I love that. It's about connecting words to your interests and making them meaningful.
Exactly. And speaking of meaning, they also emphasized collocations.
Collocations, remind me what those are again.
They're words that naturally go together, like heavy rain, not strong rain, or make a decision, not take a decision. Mastering these makes you sound more natural.
Right. Those little combinations can be tricky. Any tips on learning them?
One source suggested creating your own collocation dictionaries. Whenever you learn a new word, try to find the words that usually go with it. You can use online dictionaries or Cobra to help.
Great idea. It's about understanding how words work together, not just individually.
Exactly. And don't forget about feedback.
From teachers, language partners, native speakers.
Yep. The more feedback, the better you'll understand your strengths and weaknesses, which will help you focus your practice.
It's like having extra eyes and ears to help you improve.
You got it. And as you learn, don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Set big goals, step outside your comfort zone, and embrace those tough moments that lead to real growth.
That's so important. Learning a language is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, but stay persistent, enjoy the process, and keep exploring the world of English.
Absolutely. Every step, no matter how small, takes you closer to fluency and opens up more possibilities.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. We've covered so much, from the benefits of learning English to advanced techniques. I hope our listeners feel inspired to continue their language adventures.
Me too. And remember, learning English isn't just about a skill. It's about connecting with the world, expanding your horizons, and unlocking your full potential. Welcome back to our deep dive.
It's amazing how much we've already talked about, but I'm excited to hear those personal stories from the sources.
Me too. They really show how powerful learning English can be. One story that stuck with me was about a woman named Sophia. She dreamed of working for an international company.
That's a goal a lot of people have. Did she talk about how she made that happen?
Yeah. She knew English was important in the global job market, so she really focused on business English. She read journals, watched webinars, even listened to English business news.
Wow, like her own business English boot camp. But I bet there were challenges along the way.
Oh, for sure. She specifically mentioned struggling with idioms and expressions. Those can be tricky, especially at work when you want to sound confident.
It's like the secret code of the language. You can know all the grammar, but without the idioms, you just don't sound quite right. How did Sophia deal with that?
She joined an English conversation club, specifically to practice idioms and get feedback from others, like having a team of coaches helping you get better.
That's a great idea. It's not just about memorizing idioms, it's about using them correctly. Did she end up reaching her goal of working internationally?
She did. Her hard work paid off. And now she uses her English skills to talk to people from all over the world. Her story really shows how important it is to have a clear goal and practice in real-life situations.
Speaking of goals, there was another story about a guy named Carlos. He wanted to expand his business internationally.
Oh yeah, Carlos. His story is a perfect example of how English can help you grow. He knew he needed English to connect with partners and clients globally, so he really went all in on learning.
All in. How so? Did he take some intensive program?
He did a bunch of things. Private tutor, online courses, he even traveled to English-speaking countries to immerse himself.
That's serious dedication. He really understood the value of learning English.
Absolutely. And it worked. His business is doing great internationally, and he says a lot of that is because he can communicate in English.
It's so inspiring to see how those skills led to real success. It's not just about learning, it's about opening doors and achieving your dreams.
For sure. And these stories aren't just about business. There's one about Aisha, who wanted to work in international law.
Wow, that's a field where language is super important. Did she already know English well?
She did, but she needed to specialize. She took legal English courses, did mock trials, even interned at an international law firm.
Like creating her own law school in English? That's amazing dedication.
I know, right? And it wasn't easy. Legal language is so complex, and you can't make any mistakes.
Every word matters. Did she talk about how she overcame those challenges?
She said practice and feedback were key. She surrounded herself with legal texts and got advice from experienced lawyers, really immersed herself in the language of law.
She really went the extra mile.
Yeah.
Did she end up working in international law?
She did. She's a successful lawyer now, working with clients from all over the world. It shows what you can achieve with specialized language learning.
It's incredible how these people used English to reach their goals. From dream jobs to business success to specialized careers. It's amazing.
These stories were just a few examples of how English can connect you with the world and help you achieve your dreams.
We can't forget those who want to share their love of English. One story that I really liked was about Li Wei, a young woman who wanted to become an English teacher.
That's awesome. Teaching is such a rewarding job, especially when you can share the gift of language. What did she do to prepare for that?
Well, she decided to move to an English-speaking country for a year to really immerse herself in the language and culture.
Wow, that's a big step. Jumping right into the deep end. What was that like for her?
She lived with a host family, took advanced classes, even volunteered at local schools to get experience. She really took advantage of every opportunity to use her English.
A total immersion experience. Did she talk about the benefits of being surrounded by English all the time?
She said those everyday interactions, like ordering food or chatting with her host family, helped her learn the natural flow of the language in a way that's impossible from a textbook. English became a part of her life.
It's amazing how real-life experience can change your understanding of a language. So, did Li Wei become an English teacher?
She did. After that year abroad, she felt so much more confident in her English, and she was passionate about sharing her knowledge. Now she's living her dream, helping her students learn English and reach their potential.
Her story shows that learning English isn't just about a skill. It's about opening yourself to new experiences and making a difference in the world.
These stories are truly inspiring. It's clear that learning English can change your life in so many ways. But I'm curious to hear more about the strategies these people used.
Me too. And that's exactly what we'll be talking about in the last part of our deep dive. We'll explore practical tips and techniques that anyone can use, no matter their level or goals.
Sounds great. I'm ready to learn more and get inspired for my own language learning journey.
We'll see you there.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive. We've talked about why English matters, and now it's time for the how-to.
Yeah, and what's cool is these sources get specific. They give tips that work for different learners and goals.
Let's start with something we mentioned before, immersion. How can we make that work in everyday life besides traveling?
One source had this idea of an English-only hour each day. They'd spend that hour consuming only English content, books, podcasts, you name it. It helped them think in English more naturally.
I like that. Making English a habit without turning your life upside down. What about reading? Any tips for making the most of reading in English?
Definitely. One source, a big reader, would highlight words they didn't know. But here's the twist. They wouldn't look them up right away. They'd try to guess the meaning from the context.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Then, after reading, they'd check their guesses and make flashcards for the words they got wrong.
It's like a game. Makes reading more fun and helps you remember. What about writing? Any cool techniques there?
One that stood out was shadow writing. You find a piece of writing you love and try to copy its style, the sentences, the words, everything. It helps you learn good writing habits without even realizing it.
That's a neat idea, like learning from the best. Speaking of learning, let's talk about speaking. I think a lot of people get stuck there afraid of making mistakes, not feeling confident.
The sources had tips for that too. One person talked about self-talk. They'd narrate their day in English, even just doing chores. It helped them get comfortable forming sentences without an audience.
So practicing speaking, even when you're alone.
Exactly. Another tip was online language exchange platforms. One shy person said the anonymity of being online made it easier at first. They could type, think it through, then slowly start speaking more naturally.
I see. Technology can help bridge that gap from solo practice to talking with others.
Totally. And remember, finding real-life opportunities to use English is key. One person volunteered at a community center, which made them use English in all sorts of situations.
It's like tuning your interests into learning experiences.
You got it. And it often leads to new friendships, which helps with learning too.
The more you use English, the more confident you get, and then you find even more opportunities to use it. It's a wonderful cycle.
I agree. And as you go, keep growing your vocabulary.
Any specific techniques beyond just memorizing lists?
One source would pick a theme, like travel or food, and then spend a week learning words related to that theme. Reading, watching, listening, all about that topic made it more fun and relevant to their life.
That's a great way to learn words you'll actually use.
Right. And they also talked about collocations.
Remind me, what are collocations again?
There are words that usually go together, like heavy rain, not strong rain, or make a decision, not take a decision. Sounding natural is all about those combinations.
I get it. Those can be tricky. How can we learn them?
One person said to make your own collocation dictionaries. When you learn a new word, find the words that often go with it. Use online dictionaries or corporate to help.
Nice. It's about understanding how words work together, not just alone. What else did the sources emphasize?
Getting feedback.
From teachers, language partners, anyone.
Exactly. More feedback means you understand your strengths and weaknesses better, so you can practice smarter.
It's like having someone guide you along the way.
And as you learn, don't be afraid to push yourself. Set big goals, try new things, and don't shy away from those challenges that make you grow.
That's such great advice. Learning a language is a journey. There will be tough times, but stick with it, have fun, and never stop exploring.
I love that. Every step, no matter how small, gets you closer to fluency and all the possibilities that come with it.
This deep dive has been incredible. We've explored the benefits of learning English, the challenges, and all those awesome tips and techniques. I hope our listeners feel inspired and ready to continue their own language adventures.
I hope so too. Remember, learning English is not just about a skill. It's about connecting with the world, broadening your horizons, and becoming the best version of yourself.
That's a great way to put it. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Smart podcast. We'll be back soon with more insights and inspiration to help you on your language learning journey.